Welcome back. You are tuning in to Financial Fitness Northwest Live on 1150 KKNW, where we help you navigate the mortgage and real estate market with expert advice from knowledgeable and trustworthy industry professionals. We are here with our first guest, Peter Freet with Northwest Group Real Estate. Peter is a realtor and managing broker who has sold hundreds of properties in the greater Seattle-Bellevue area, and he has earned the trust and respect of his clients and fellow brokers. Peter has also served 2 terms as Vice President of Business Practices and has just been reelected for his 4th term on the Board of Directors for Seattle-King County Association of Realtors for 2017. Welcome, Peter.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome, Peter.
I'm feeling good about your first show.
Are you? Oh, good. Yeah. I'm feeling good, too.
Yeah.
Well, so we're so glad you're here to talk about, really from the buyer, for the buyer, right? Talking to the buyer and what they can expect. And so, first off, can you just share, I know you have a lot of knowledge. How long have you been in the business, Peter?
I've been in the business on the east side since 1988.
Okay, so a lot of knowledge.
I've seen a lot of ups and downs and like the ups a whole lot more than the downs.
Yeah, don't we all? So can you share with us a little bit about this market, how it compares to like historical trends and what's going on right now?
Well, this market has really broken the mold completely. The wild card that we have is that all the stars have been in alignment here for a while with our local economy. And the economy anywhere is always all about jobs.
Right.
And more jobs have been created, more jobs, businesses have expanded over the last decade since the downturn than we've ever seen up here in the greater Seattle area. When you add the success stories of all the tech companies, as well as telecommunication, med tech, biotech, I mean, think about it. There was no Amazon essentially 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
And extrapolate from there. So it's all about jobs, and jobs bring with it the people here locally working and making a great living, as well as new people coming to the area to fill those jobs that can't be filled from the local inventory of workers, and they're coming from all over the world.
Right. I heard something recently that there's about 250,000 people migrating to the Pacific Northwest this year.
Well, I think probably the most telling statistics that I saw from last year is that King County, in King County, there were 70,000 driver's licenses issued to people who already had driver's licenses from other places.
Oh, wow.
That moved here. Now, think about that relative to what that one driver's license means to how many people they brought with them.
Right, exactly.
Like a family of 4? Or?
Exactly, exactly. So it's pretty mind-boggling when you think about all the new people that are coming here, as well as we're also in a great position now with our own local economy being so strong that our young people are staying. They're not going elsewhere for the most part. They don't need to go elsewhere to find another job. There are so many great job opportunities here in the greater Seattle area and Puget Sound area. So hopefully we're holding on to our own as well as getting new people.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to a good question. So with home ownership and so many new people coming in, how does that relate to the first-time buyer versus the move-up buyer?
Well, it's a scary time for everybody. When you think about it, to put it in perspective, home inventory is the biggest problem, and that's the realities of our region. We have a lot of hills. We have a lot of water. We have a lot of environmental issues that go into creating space for new housing. Previously, when certain areas especially of the east side, for instance, were undeveloped, you always had a backlog of possible plats being built in affordable distances from work destinations for new construction as an alternative to resale housing. Now those locations are either extremely expensive to develop and therefore will be for very expensive homes by comparison, or there just isn't any more developable areas in certain of our east side, especially our east side and south end, as well as now well up into the north end communities. So the replacement inventory can't be created overnight. Follow that up with the fact that the developers and builders who do multifamily have been focused more on apartment building rather than condo building because it's an immediate return on an investment and becomes a cash cow pretty much the day that it's done, as opposed to a condominium, which can take sometimes a year or two for the larger unit groups to sell out. So the alternative, again, of condos has not been there. So it puts all the pressure on resale listings, people, existing homes, hopefully coming from people that are trading up or trading down or whatever.
But if they're trading down, there's really not anywhere to go, right? Because there's no condos.
You haven't heard that.
I mean, Arizona. They're going to Arizona.
Well, we hope so.
I guess, because we need their houses.
We need their houses. Go. Get out of here.
So, how would you talk to the move-up buyer? Because, that's me too. And it's about timing your move, right?
It's a very different conversation than you have with the first-time buyer, because the move-up buyer has already established themselves where they are, generally speaking.
Right.
And if they have children, they've got school districts that are important to them to stay within. Obviously, commutes are really important, so they don't want to change their lives too much.
Right.
They've involved themselves in the community and in community activities and community government and schools, churches, those kind of things, and organizations. So it's hard to move. So if they want to move up within the neighborhood where they are, it used to be maybe you could find a bigger home or a bit of a better home in your close by neighborhood for maybe another 20 to 30% higher than the value of the home you're in.
Right.
Now it's almost like you have to be at least go 40 to 50% more to actually improve your lifestyle very much, and stay close to where you want to be. Right. So there's that. The other thing is, again, if you want to be a trade-up buyer, you're also in competition with everybody else who's coming in or who's first-time buying as well. First-time buyers used to be at the low end of the market. Now they can be at multi-million-dollar levels.
Oh, yeah. I think, the average first-time home buyer, at least what I'm experiencing on Seattle and East Side, is somewhere between $500 to $750, maybe even $850. It's crazy because it's like they're the power couple, honestly. The first-time home buyers, they work at Google and Amazon, and their first house is $850. And they don't have kids yet. They're young, but they have these, they got all these signing bonuses, stock awards, and they make really good incomes.
Well, and
so you're competing against them.
You're competing against them. So, and then the other thing, and I think it's pointed back at your original statement, is that, or what Patricia said, where do I go? I only hear that, 5 times a day. But Peter, where would I go? And I sometimes have no answer to that question. Used to have lots of answers. Now I have very few answers for that. A lot of people who are trading down, for instance, as far as square footage, not necessarily money, aren't interested in high-rise condominiums. They want a townhome. They want a one-level patio-type home. They want a simple rambler.
Where do you get a rambler?
You don't.
Not that many. They sell fast, right?
You don't. I have a story about one of my colleagues wrote an offer on a rambler out in the Rose Hill area of Kirkland, not too far from where we are now. It was listed in the mid-5s. There were 31 offers.
Wow.
Half of them were cash, and nobody had an inspection.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
and it went for 15% over full price. And in an area where 500 used to be a major stretch.
Right.
And now that one went into the 7s.
And it was probably like a 1,300 square foot rambler.
That was 14.
Okay. We'll give them a
big house. It was a big house.
Well, so to try and put a little bit of a positive spin on this for our listeners,
don't shoot yourself.
Yeah. How do we help people, the move-up buyers, how do we encourage them to get their house listed so we have more inventory and figure out where they can go?
That's a good question. And part of that is having them really drill down within their financial position and see if they are in a position to qualify or get pre-approved with you guys without selling their existing home. If they can leverage their other financial assets in order to be able to do that, because if they can, then they can be competitive.
Right.
If they can't, virtually no one will take a contingent offer on the sale of their home.
Right.
And very few will take an offer that is subject to a sale they may already have, because, again, they're going to be in competition against people who have nothing to sell.
Right.
So it's certainly not impossible. And the good news behind that is, generally speaking, with the success of getting their home properly presented, properly marketed, and properly priced, their home will sell in about a New York minute anyway.
Right.
So the chances of them owning two homes, if they proceed with approaching the market the way they should, is pretty slim. But they have to be pre-approved as though they could own two homes at least for a short period of time.
And I know, like with Caliber, we do recast loans. So I have a buyer right now who bought a home without selling his current, and then he put enough down, to qualify. But we do a recast. So once he sells his home, he's going to take all the proceeds and recast his loan one time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's great. And that's why I send everybody to you guys.
Perfect. Well, we like that. So let's talk about pre-inspection.
Well, I think what buyers have to wrap around, and good brokers are letting them know this up front and getting them prepared for the market, kind of getting them with their kit. One of those things to have in your kit is to be prepared to do and pay for a pre-inspection on a property, because generally speaking, what's going on right now is the listing brokers and their sellers are listing properties with a review date sometime in the future for offers to be reviewed and subsequently expected. Mm-hmm. So let's say if somebody lists their house today on a Thursday, and today's the first day, they may be looking at offers next Wednesday.
Right.
So in the meantime, the seller has pre-signed a pre-inspection agreement, which allows the buyer, if signed, to have a pre-inspection at their own with an appointment at their own expense, and usually that expense is somewhere between $400 to $600 for a typical home, and for a very large or luxury home might be as much as $1,000 to have the home actually inspected, so that when they make their offer, number one, they know what they're buying and what the flaws and potential costs of repair might be, and number two, so that they can make the offer not subject to inspection, so that the seller doesn't have to worry about that particular buyer having any fur, so to speak, on their offer.
Right.
So essentially the buyer has to be ready to buy it as is based on that inspection.
Is it really imperative to do a pre-inspection
Absolutely.
these days? It is.
Absolutely. Let the buyer beware has never been more important right now. Many sellers are doing their own pre-inspections and making them available to the buyer.
Oh, really?
And in some cases, depending on the property and its age and the characteristics of it, they might not. They might decide to use the seller's inspection and spare their expense. But more often than not, I counsel buyers to think a little further about that and remember that whoever did that inspection was paid by the seller,
Right.
Yeah.
and had no responsibility to anybody else besides the seller. So it's a good idea, even at that, to have your own inspection. We have pre-inspectors who can do pretty quick jobs and do very thorough jobs and walk the buyer through for relatively inexpensively, or if they want a full-on inspection, they can have video, they can have digital photography, as well as the full text of an inspection. Also, the important thing out there, especially for older houses, is to have a sewer scope done, and that's to make sure that the side sewer or the sewer lines, especially with older houses, particularly in Seattle, don't have any defects to them, because that can be about a $12,000 surprise.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
Yeah.
So people do their pre-inspection. They're ready to make that offer. What tips do you have for our listeners on how to make their offer stand out?
Well, I think if we kind of back up the thought process a little bit, when I work with my buyers and try to get them focused on what their goals are, I find that it's really important to make sure that they're focusing in on location and location variety as much as possible so that we're not bouncing all over the place to locations where they don't have a familiarity. They want to do a little due diligence before they make up their minds, do neighborhood reviews, those kind of things. That needs to be kind of narrowed down in advance. When you buy a house, you're buying the location first and foremost. So to not have that nailed down,
that's a good way to think of it.
You can, if you buy a new car, you can park it anywhere. You buy a new house, it's where it is.
Right.
It's in the same parking lot all the time. It doesn't go anywhere. So that's important. The other thing is to be completely pre-approved, have their finances in order with you guys especially, which is why I send everybody to you guys, so that we know going in what their flexibilities are on financing, how quickly you guys can close a loan, how quickly they can close the purchase, so that in their offer they can make those dates as tight as they can. The other thing that they need to do is focus in on making a real commitment to the buy. It's like, you only go to senior prom once. You don't want to have, you'd like to have the first person you ask accept.
Right.
And so you want to make that offer as strong as you can. Big earnest monies are important, up to at least 3% of the purchase price. The earnest money gets pledged towards your down payment anyway. It's not going anywhere except to escrow or to an escrow account. So you want to make that as strong as you can. The other thing is make the rest of your timing as tight as you can, and make your offer as strong as you can financially, especially knowing that you're going to be up against other people in a multiple offer situation, which is tough because, it's like a lot of buyers think that, I don't want to lay my cards on the table. It's not a good way to play poker. Well, what you have to understand is it's like straight poker. You get one shot. And assuming that the seller may come back for a counteroffer is probably not going to happen. So you need to figure out what the number is in the offer, the price offer, that if you lost it, you couldn't have gone any higher anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Put your best foot forward, right?
Yeah, every time.
Yep.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming on. We have a couple of minutes, and I just really want people to know, well, I know how fabulous you are. But for our listeners, really the extra service and benefit they have for working with you over another agent, obviously your knowledge, but can you share a little bit with our listeners?
Well,
why choose Peter?
My focus with buyers and as well as with sellers, but certainly importantly with buyers, is finding out what exactly it is as much as possible that they want, what their hopes and dreams are, what they want, what their plans are for this purchase. Is this a 2-year house? Is it a 5-year house? Is it a forever house? Do they want to raise their kids there? Is that the reason, or why? What it makes this buy particularly important? And then getting to know them and to know what their wants and needs are, their personalities, their lifestyle, what they like to do when they're not at home, those kind of things, and make sure that I can focus on them because it's really the whole thing is truly about their wants and needs and about their future.
Absolutely.
That sounds awesome, Peter. You obviously put the customer's needs first, and I think people can appreciate that for sure.
Well, what we have to remember is that the buyer is the market. I list a lot of properties as well, and the sellers, are certainly very, very, very important. But most everything I've learned about real estate, I've learned driving buyers around, because what comes out of their mouth is a statement of the market. What's the market? And they bring all the money to the party.
Right.
So true.
So true.
So true. Well, thank you so much, Peter. We really appreciate all that great information. Thanks for tuning in to Financial Fitness Northwest. When we come back, we will be talking to Ward and Austin and
Garth Ward.
Yes, I'm sorry, Garth Ward and Austin. And they will be talking to us about how to accurately market and advertise your home in this market, and also how to increase your property's visibility in the Asian market. So that'll be an interesting little segment. If you have any questions about our topics discussed today, You can find us online at www.financialfitnessnw.com. See you in a minute.